Self-estrangement is the curious new word we've devised to describe this particular brand of suffering. We live deeply ensconced in the cult of the individual. We live what we like to think of as our lives, often disconnected from and independent of the world of nature, as well as from the dark and mysterious world of the soul. We live cut off from a sense of our true deep mutual belonging and interdependence, and we suffer from a painful sense of separation, a separation from the life of the body, a separation from the hidden depths of life, its mystery and interiority, a separation from the source of our own guidance, wisdom, and compassion, and a separation from the life-giving roots of human community. What a surprise to find that the psychology and practice of yoga speak directly to the problems of self-estrangement. Indeed, alienation from the self is the entire focus of yoga philosophy. Here is a language that, unlike our current psychological language, is deeply concerned with the relationship between the soul and the self, the body and the soul, the divine and the human. Here is a systematic exploration of the unconscious that predates Freud by thousands of years. Here is a psychology that described the collective unconscious and the transpersonal self several millennia before Carl Jung. Here is a philosophy that understood life as an archetypal pilgrimage to the center long before the New Age. Here is a psychological language not yet rendered impotent by cliché or commercialism, and even more refreshingly, one that is uncomplicated by Calvinism and Puritanism and is free of the Western obsession with guilt and shame. Nonetheless, yoga's deepest secrets are not easily accessible. Those of us who lift the lid to peer more deeply into its mysteries may find ourselves bewildered. Initially, we bump up against an incomprehensible stew of every conceivable philosophy, psychology, and metaphysic ever brewed up on the spiritually fecund subcontinent of India. Veda, Vedanta, Samkhya, Tantra, ancient and modern, esoteric and practical, magical and scientific. As novelist Arundhati Roy says of her native land, India is a land that lives in many centuries at once. In the world of yoga, primitive and archaic religious forms lie side by side with the most sublime and sophisticated spirituality known to humankind. How are we to find our way in this strange new world? When I first began inquiring more deeply into yoga, I lamented the fact that there were so few books about the real experience of the transformation wrought by this practice. There were plenty of how-to books to help me learn the basics about yoga postures and breathing. There were mountains of hyperbolic accounts of the lives of Indian saints and yogis, fascinating stories about time travel, bilocation, knowledge of former births, understanding the languages of animals and birds. There was a flood tide of nearly incomprehensible Hindu metaphysics, filled with high-flown descriptions of ecstatic states. Union with the One, the Absolute, cosmic consciousness, and transcendence of the phenomenal world. But where were the descriptions of neurotic Western seekers like myself? Where was my story? For 10 years now, I have lived and taught at the largest residential yoga center in the world, Kripalu Center for Yoga and Health, in Lenox, Massachusetts. Day in and day out, it is my privilege to hear the stories of contemporary seekers, many of them quite a bit like myself, asking the same questions I asked. They come here to practice yoga, 17,000 of them a year, as I did, hoping it will help. And most often it does, in ways they hadn't imagined. But how? And why? What is all this about Kundalini and chakras? Is it real? Where do these practices lead? If I persevere, am I going to end up wearing mala beads, saffron robes, and living on a mountaintop? Whom can I trust to guide me through this fascinating new world? In this book, I have attempted to write the Baedeker I needed as I began my own exploration, an account of the interaction of real Western human beings with the psychology, philosophy, and practice of yoga. An account that attempts to build a bridge between a sometimes complicated and esoteric theory and an essentially very straightforward and down-to-earth practice. I begin with a classic yogic parable of transformation, Viveka's tale, which lays the groundwork for the entire journey that follows. In Part 1, The Discovery of the Royal Secret, I use aspects of my own story and those of friends, colleagues, and psychotherapy patients to describe contemporary versions of Viveka's experience of exile, hearing the call of the true self, and setting out on the royal road home. Part 2, The Self in Exile, takes us more deeply into the yogic view of the human dilemma and describes the fundamental components of yoga's psychology of the self.